I heard you.
Okay, so yeah, you heard me. So everybody, welcome to a special edition of Tenma's Tutorials. Today we have Stephen Klug as our guest appearance, and with
So everyone,
that, we've got a bunch of questions and all that kind of stuff, and we're hoping that Stephen will be able to actually answer most of these here. But definitely thanks so much for coming on the show. It's much appreciated. You're the first person I've been able to bring up here for an interview.
really,
Well, I
I'm
waited 2 months for this. So
happy to be here.
yes, okay. So we know the term technical director, but what does that entail at SOE for you?
So, at SOE, a technical director, I'm not the technical director for all of SOE. I'm the
Mm-hmm.
technical director for EverQuest Next and EverQuest Next Landmark. It used to be EverQuest Next Landmark, which is now Landmark. It's basically kind of a combined management engineering position where it's my job to make sure that all the technical tasks are being created properly, they're estimated and assigned to people, and that when people have questions about what a particular task is, that they get answered. And I'm a facilitator,
Okay.
but I also do a lot of the, in particular for this game, I've done a lot of the work on the voxel engine side of things, working with the voxel farm folks, making sure that that gets integrated into the engine. Have made extensive modifications and additions to that to make it work with Landmark. So I've done a lot of that work and a lot of the server side work. I do a lot of stuff here, but technical director just means that I'm directing all the engineers on the team,
Mm-hmm.
making sure that everything gets done.
Okay. What games besides Next and Landmark have you worked on in the past?
Well, let's see. I kind of came into the game industry, after working in software engineering for maybe over 20 years, but decided to make a change and do something that I always dreamed of doing when I was younger. So started out at SCEA. So I worked a lot of time for a while in their backend systems, doing like matchmaking for games like uh, uh, gosh, it was one of the launch titles of PS3,
Mm-hmm.
Fall of Man, the blanking on the name. But it was just the matchmaking stuff and the back end. But then came over here to work on EverQuest and was on that team for 5 years or something like that. 3 of which were as the lead programmer.
All right. Well, how many people estimate kind of is
I
like?
also I also worked quite a bit on to push on getting PlanetSide 2 out the door. So
Oh, okay, cool. How many people work under you? Like, what kind of a scope or do you actually deal with on a daily basis?
yeah, right. We don't actually reveal the exact number of people on our
Mm-hmm.
teams, but it's in terms of the game industry norms, it's a medium-sized team. Back in the early days when it was first being started, it was definitely small.
Mm-hmm.
But right now we're about what I would call a medium-sized team for a AAA title, that sort of
Oh,
thing.
okay.
In terms of the number of coders, anyway.
All right. Next question is, how many parts of the inner workings of the game are you basically responsible for? Like, what parts or do you have to pull from to actually get your job done?
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, I'm responsible for all of it, but certainly there's a large amount of the engine that was created that we reused from. It was already created by our core technology team here.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of code sharing that goes on between the various games at SOE. We used a lot of the back end software, server software, and the client frameworks for that PlanetSide used. And then we completely gutted their whole terrain system, obviously, and replaced it with the voxel system. And had to write extensive new systems on the server side to support all of the data handling that's needed for supporting a fully dynamic voxel world.
Mm-hmm.
That was kind of one of the major chunks of technology that we built. How do you deal with all that data? Make sure that I mean, it's probably not as exposed to players, but I mean, the cost of all that data being shuffled back and forth can actually get quite high. So, you need to make sure that we keep that under control.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, compared, like this game to, let's say, like EverQuest 2, I mean, I'm assuming, assumptions are like buttholes and all that kind of stuff, but I'm assuming for this game, the actual size of like the database that has to hold that data must be like a heck of a lot larger than what would be for like EverQuest 2.
Yeah, I mean, it's if you look at games like EverQuest 2, their main data is basically player data. It's my inventory, what quests have I done, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, obviously, and granted, their inventories are quite large now that the game's been out for so long. They don't have anything like voxel data. It dwarfs the size of data of anything that we've ever done. And it was one of the big concerns when we were building this game as to how we were going to handle that. But we've come up with some pretty good ways of dealing with it. It's definitely bigger. I mean, it's more expensive to run. It takes more server-side storage, but the cost of that storage goes down over time, like anything computer-related. So, ironically, it's more about the cost of the network transfer of all that data as opposed to the storage of it. Storage of data gets cheaper and cheaper. So,
okay, and it says I noticed on your Twitter.
This is totally geek trivia here, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, I noticed on your Twitter it says a workaholic. Let's see, we haven't seen you very much except for back in Alpha when you used to come on the Landmark Live show every once in a while there, and you kind of disappeared for a while. And what would you say is your driving force for the job that you do?
What was my driving force? Well, I mean, working in the game industry has been very exciting, and I'm always really passionate. Even before the game industry, I've always been very passionate about the project that I work on. So, for me, it's I'm very lucky to have a very forgiving wife, and I'm still married, which is some wood, knock on wood. But yeah, I do have been accused of being a workaholic. What drives me? I want to see this product succeed. I mean, it's especially EQ Next. That's the dream game that I always wanted to play. And Landmark is a significant step towards that. So getting these games out to me is very important, and that means a lot of work.
All right, so we pretty much got the introduction section done. So hopefully everybody has a better understanding of what it is that you do at the company. And when they gave me the list of well, this person's available, and there was Stephen Klug, I was like, oh yeah, don't want Dave, don't want Terry, I want Steve.
I vanished. I'm not sure why they stopped asking me to come on there. I figured people were just bored of hearing from me.
No.
I think that they started to become sensitive with how much time I was putting in or something. But I still put in a lot of hours. But happy to come talk to players anytime.
Awesome. Okay, so I have a short little EverQuest Next little questionnaire type thing, and then we'll get into the Landmark stuff right afterwards. And which the Landmark section of it has the majority of the players' questions. But you are working on EverQuest Next. My little corner of the world is like Landmark, but it also kind of ties in with EverQuest Next, as well. So, but let's kind of dive right into these questions here. How has the work on EverQuest Next differed from other games you have been a part of?
Well, so I mean, it's kind of like a broken record here, but the fact that this game has a completely dynamic player-generated world, and not all of it will be for EverQuest Next, but yeah, parts of it will be. So that means everything has to be capable of being player-created. It just makes the whole game much more difficult to build. In the long run, it should make it easier for us to generate content. But in terms of difference from other games, I mean, other games don't. We're building something that nobody's really ever done. It's been done. Some parts of it have been done in certain games, but not in an MMO, or some parts have been done in an MMO, but not with this fidelity. It's just the amount of sort of trailblazing we're doing here is fairly astounding. So it's very different than any other game that's been built.
Mm-hmm.
And certainly very different than any game I've built before. But that's what makes it fun, right?
Okay, well, voxel-based games are definitely a new approach to how games are made. Do you think this type of a system will become the mainstay for the game industry in the coming decade?
Will it become the mainstay? It's a good question. I think that we're going to be proving a lot of things here. My hope is that it will. I think it opens up a lot of flexibility for players. But there will always be a market for games that are just buy and consume content that was made by somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
But I think a lot of players are waiting for that next thing, which is we want to build this game ourselves and help them make it.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
That's what brought me. That's why I'm in Landmark.
It's the game I'm going to play.
So
that spark of the creator, right? That's in so many of us.
Yes. And well, you, Jeff, and Miguel, and myself, we stood around in that hallway for a while, chatting it up at SOE Live, and but Miguel is pretty much the mastermind behind Voxel Farm, give or take. Mm-hmm. And how closely do you and he work together to solve a lot of the voxel issues that kind of come up within the two different game systems?
Well, there's a pretty hard line between the stuff that I work on and the stuff that he works on. He has the core engine parts of the voxel processing. In which case, if I find a bug or would like to see a feature in there, I just ask him and he works on it for us, or he and his company. But then there's a lot of these extensions that we've made to Voxel Farm. All of the server-side processing and handling of the data going back and forth between your computer and the servers in terms of all the voxel data. That's all our stuff. Mm-hmm. So that's all code that we work on. But there's definitely a lot of brainstorming that goes on between the two of us and other people on the team to try and figure out what are the best ways that we can apply his tech to make a more or even to apply our tech to his tech and to mix it together to make a great game out.
Yeah, I watched one of his.
It's one thing to have the technology. It's another thing to make a complete game out of it, right?
Yeah, I recently watched one of his videos where it actually showed, like on his iPhone and his iPad, mm-hmm. on the TV and stuff, and he was able to basically stream to all three of them. Right. Do you see EverQuest Next actually being playable on tablet devices and stuff like that? Sure.
Now the way that he's doing that is potentially extensible to a game like this, but it's definitely a huge amount of. It's a very different direction than we've gone with the current game, and it would require a dedicated effort to do that. It's something we've always talked about doing, but right now we're definitely focusing on the core, trying to get the core gameplay loop in, trying to make it a shipped game on PC.
Awesome.
But definitely not. We're not discounting the possibility of doing other platforms later.
That would be really wicked. Because it would
I agree.
It would open up everything, be driving down the road, playing Landmark, playing EverQuest Next.
but I mean, so the problem there becomes twofold. You have to do all that processing somewhere, right? Mm-hmm. Right now, that's all being done on your client. Phones aren't really capable of doing that in real time, so the processing is having to be done elsewhere, which means that you have to have much beefier servers. One of the things that we talk about a lot in game development is, especially MMOs, is that our clients are basically a gigantic distributed processing network. So because there's so much horsepower on individual PCs, mm-hmm. You guys are all running i5s and i7 processors, and there's thousands of them. That seriously dwarfs our back-end server processing power. So we like to try and make as much stuff run on your clients as possible. because it's just not scalable to have servers that can do the same amount of processing. So now if you have a bunch of mobile phones that you have to do all the processing for them on the server instead, it becomes a scalability issue. And then you have to push all of that data out to them over 4G networks, which unlike most people with an ISP connection, they're charging per packet, or you've got data caps and all that stuff you have to start worrying about, and it becomes a whole different ballgame. So it's definitely a goal long term, but I agree, it would be awesome.
Okay. Here's the next one. What past setbacks have you encountered with the integration of Storybricks, the voxel engine, and Forge Lite?
Integration. No, we haven't encountered any major setbacks with Storybricks in particular. But then again, a lot of their stuff hasn't come out. Hasn't been shown to you guys yet. I mean, we've shown you, how it's going to work, but it hasn't been shipped. So soon. You'll start to see some of that stuff, and hopefully we won't have any setbacks. But crossing my fingers. Very soon with some of it. But.
All right. So, well, it kind of killed the next question on that, but that's okay. As a rough estimate, how far into the base EverQuest Next creation would you say you were at? Like 40, 50%?
The base EverQuest Next.
Yes.
Gosh, there's definitely some big pieces that remain that are EverQuest Next specific, that we haven't worked on because they weren't required for Landmark. Overall percentage is tough though. I would say once we ship Landmark, which ship to me is open beta, basically. I would say that we're probably 60 to 65% done, something like that. But that's just a guess.
That's not bad. It's still not too bad. Considering what you're undertaking, that's still really pretty good, actually.
It also depends on how you look at it. Is it 65% of total time? Total man hours? I don't know. So number of features that need to be completed. Yeah, it's a very, very fuzzy number.
All right. So
try to pin an engineer, especially a technical director, down on a number. Boy, it's hard.
All right. So here's the last one for EverQuest Next, and which is what would you say has been the hardest feature to implement so far for EverQuest Next and or Landmark?
Hardest feature. Hardest. Depends how you define hardest, but I would say there's a lot of problems that we've solved that have been very difficult. Things like how to create our continents, how do you create the islands procedurally, how do you cave systems, which you guys haven't seen the full release of yet, which soon, TM. But the cave systems are very complicated, very complex system. And coming soon, we're going to be having to finish up pathing, which is very complicated.
I saw that on the list. That's like 2 weeks from now or something like that. Or well, that's
we're
still crossing our fingers for that one.
We'll no doubt be tweaking that for a long time to come, but because there's so many variables. But yeah.
Awesome. All right, so that kind of leads us into the big bulk questions, because all of these questions have come from our viewers, and they have been kind of weeded out a little bit, and it's about this long full of questions.
Sure.
But I'll start at the very top and kind of work my way down here. What system within Landmark do you consider the connection point to bring all the other systems into the full loop?
The full loop.
Yeah, that's one of Dave's terms.
that's the full game loop that we keep referring to.
Yeah. So it kind of ties everything kind of together, I guess you could say. So.
Well, it's almost more of a design question, but to me, we don't really have a game loop until we have fun and compelling NPC combat. I mean, that's the one system that I've been waiting for very excitedly. because it really pushes the exploration, right? We've had caves for a while, at least, one layer of caves. But, aside from the chests and things, the real reason to go down there is going to be to find cool monsters to kill and get the loot and all that good stuff. Find places to explore.
Awesome.
For me, it's the combat that kind of draws everything, draws you into the game, gives a sense of risk, things like that. Because I'm an explorer player, so if the game doesn't have stuff to explore, it has interesting things to do there. It's doesn't have a full game loop. So that's the one thing I think.
Well, that pretty much almost answered my next question there. So, what systems are you most excited about coming up over the next month? Are you the ones that you are personally excited about?
I am personally the most excited about getting NPCs into the game. Actually, almost as excited about the ruins and the stuff that players are building to actually populate the game with cool places to visit. I just think that's something we haven't seen in a open world MMO ever. It's just very cool.
Awesome. Okay, so this kind of leads into NPC pathing. I actually have that up here on the listing. I didn't even ask a question on that. It was just NPC pathing. What?
Will we have it? Yes.
Yeah. What were some of the boundaries that were pretty much set forth on the NPC pathing that you would say was the most difficult to overcome?
I mean, the basic problem is, well, first of all, we have a very large amount of data. So, we have, with Landmark, we decided to pick all of the toughest problems to solve and need to get them done the soonest. Because we're crazy. But not only do we have the problem that there's a completely dynamic world, so obviously pathing can change on the fly. Most pathing systems are built with static path, what they're called path meshes, which means that you pre-calculate all the possible routes and you essentially create a navigation map of where NPCs can go. Well, now you have to update that map every time somebody blows a hole in a wall or adds a wall somewhere or whatever. So that's the first big problem. Well, the second big problem is just in terms of performance, you don't want to be even though the world is created procedurally, the amount of work it takes to build that path mesh, as I mentioned before, it's a lot of computational power required to do that. So you don't want to be doing that on the fly. So as much as possible, since a lot of the world is just procedural, you want to pre-generate the pathing information.
So, so is it kind of like a sandwich where you have like the surface of the land and then you actually have a layer just for the pathing in the world, even though we don't see it? It's kind of
correct.
There.
The servers have a completely separate representation of the terrain, which is specifically for pathing. So not only do we have the problem of needing it to be dynamically updatable, but we have the problem of we have an extra n in our equation, right? Most games are x and y. Well, we have z too. We have a three-dimensional world because we have all those layers in the world. But that leads to a lot of data. Just to give you an idea, we've been optimizing, but on the server side, for a single island, our path meshes and collision data for the procedurally generated terrain are running in the neighborhood of about 6 gigabytes per island. And all of that has to be loaded into memory. We have 50 different islands. So as you can see, that requires a lot of a lot of memory processing on the server. So
that's going to be just I can't even say the word. It's just going to be really big. Okay, when you go over into EverQuest Next, which is pretty much a seamless across a huge continent versus just one small island.
Right, but the topology may be very different there. In other words, you may have the seamless continents. May have a very different topology. You may not have 5 layers everywhere. You may not have so it's hard to say exactly how that's going to translate in terms of the size, but it'll definitely be comparable. And so that's one of our big data challenges right now is to get all that data. And that's not data that gets published to you guys. That's data that's all on the back end. But we have to do internal publishes that are challenging in that respect as well. We have European servers. We have to get that data all over to our European servers, and 50 times 6 gigs is a lot of data.
Yeah. All right, so now we're going into player questions, which I have a full list that I have been gathering for about a week and a half now, from everything from inside TeamSpeak, Twitter, here on the stream, and I've kind of compiled it and then kind of sorted it all out and all that kind of good stuff. That way we have the bulk of the good stuff right here. First one is here in the next couple of weeks, we'll be getting the new larger character sizes. Will we be able to remake our characters without losing the templates? And could there be a way to set it up where when we do delete a character, we do not lose everything like the templates, etc.?
Well, templates are, I believe, currently tied to your account, not to your character. So in theory, you should not be losing them right now if you deleted your character. Yeah. You lose your character progress and you lose anything in your inventory, but even I believe even your claims don't go away.
Yeah.
At one point they did. I don't think they do right now.
I do know
in the very beginning when we first released claims, they were tied to the character, but not anymore.
But we do lose like all the materials that we've purchased and stuff like that. That's the kind of stuff that probably we're worried about more than anything.
Right. I don't believe initially we are allowing you to switch to a different race. Not because we don't want to, just because trying to get the core game stuff in there first.
Gotcha. All right, so on to the next one. This has been, well, actually the next two things I have here are something that's been requested like for quite some time, but we just haven't gotten it yet. A random dice roll command inside the game. Basically, that way we can be able to do, different games inside the game, like picking a random character to run a maze or something like that. That's something that's been requested quite a few times. Is there or will there possibly be a chance for us to get something like that?
Just a random dice roll, like a slash random command or something?
Slash R&D or RMD, yeah.
I mean, I can certainly add it to the list. That's not one that I had seen surface to me.
Yeah.
Let me just open a list. I will add it.
Grab that list because we got a few more coming.
Sure. All right.
All right.
Not so much a question as a feature request.
Pretty much.
I'm good with that.
Pretty much. Next was claim permissions to allow people to come and copy stuff, but not have the ability to delete.
Right. Yes. That's been on our list for a while. It's just we haven't gotten to it yet. I believe that is on the list of things to do.
Okay, sweet. Okay, well that knocks out another one. Next one, inside the guild window, we do not have last log on time. That is something that really kind of makes it hard to manage, who's been gone for 2 months, 3 months, or whatever. Right. And within Colossus ourselves, I mean, we're maxed out. And we have a secondary guild set up so that if somebody leaves, the group, then we just bring someone in from the second group so we can keep a full roster. But we don't have that time date stamp basically for the log.
Right. I imagine it's something we could do. I'm surprised it's not there, but we could take a look. Awesome. I think the guild server actually tracks that information. It's just a matter of surfacing it, probably.
Sweet.
But we'll add it to the list.
All right.
Now, granted, none of these things I'm adding to the list necessarily are coming, next week or anything. But I'll definitely. Awesome. It's better to have them in the list than to not be in the list.
Yeah. Next was Twitch integration with a webcam overlay for Landmark the Game. Or possibly even on into EQ Next.
Right. It's something we've talked about. There's still some internal discussions between us and Twitch make that happen. Just a matter of time, really, because you can actually do it without the built-in integration. It just hasn't made it up to the top of dev time resources. When you look at Twitch requires a certain number of integrations if you're going to do an embedded implementation, and it just opens up into a much larger task than it would seem at the surface to make it happen. So it just unfortunately hasn't made it to the top of the list yet. It's something we like to do.
Is that possibly because it's not just the client connecting Twitch? It could also have to be client to your server, from your server then back over to Twitch because of that integration.
There's issues like needing full chat integration as well, which actually add a fair amount of complexity to it, especially when you're talking about chat for an MMO. Becomes a little bit more than just sticking the video in there.
I actually had another one in here about the chat. I guess I need to move that one up. Can the in-game chat be opened up to fan sites through open authentication?
Opened up to, it depends on what you mean by opened up to fan sites. In other words, what channels are we talking about here? Back in the day, with like EQ2 and EQ1, we had some Tray apps or something where you could chat directly into the games without actually being in the games. And that's really cool. We like that idea. It's not something that our back end currently supports, but something we'd like to see one day. But in terms of making it work on a website, that would probably be some extension. Somebody would have to write we could publish the API at some point once it's there and possibly have it tie in. But this is all speculation. It's possible.
Awesome. So hopefully I answered somebody's question up in there.
I get excited about this. I always say that anything's possible with time and money. It's just a matter of what's the priority.
Gotcha.
I personally like the idea of having the ability to chat in my guild from my phone or from a website or whatever. That's really cool stuff.
Awesome. The next one I have here is possibly a in-game notepad, so that you can type down notes, like maybe create steps on how to make something or something like that for in-game.
Probably not something that could happen since you could just open Notepad.
True.
But I know some people don't like to play in windowed mode, but I mean, for stuff like that, it's really easy to just run in windowed mode and use an external application. Seems pretty reasonable to do so. And I'm not sure we'd want a programmer spending time building a text editor in the game and they could build something else. But
gotcha. Okay. Okay. Next one. Now we're starting to get down and dirty because will there be weather that creates voxels such as a buildup of snow on the ground?
Now, did Terry ask this question?
Actually, Cody actually asked this question. Cody wanted me to ask this one.
Yes, there's a running joke in the company specifically with Terry when he was lead on EverQuest that he was asked whether or not we could have snow build up on the ground in the original EverQuest, and basically said no. And, so. It's just sort of a running story to this day, and that's just what cracked me up. While that is possible, I suspect that our weather systems would probably be more visual and simple before that. Then we can start. I mean, that's one of the really cool things about having a voxel engine is that there's all kinds of really awesome stuff that's possible. But when you consider blanketing an entire island with snow and the amount of data that transfers back and forth. The amount of data that represents, if you're looking at, every 16 square feet, you're adding a layer of voxels, which is what, 40 by 40 voxels.
Yeah. This does take us into the weather effects. So, will we have that coming at some point in time where we have
Yeah, I mean. Weather systems are something that are on our longer term list. We definitely like to see that. The issue, of course, is that it's not a core gameplay. Right now, it's all about core gameplay, right? So we haven't been working on it, but for aesthetics, we definitely like to see it. I mean, the game is beautiful, right? And we'd like to see it be even more beautiful. So, and given that we're dealing with voxels, making the environment effects, turning them up to 11 or whatever with the weather system, I think would be great. We've got some people on the team that they're very experienced with those systems. So once we get around to it, I think that we can have something really cool.
Well, you have to let those guys know they've got at least 2 more weather effects they have to add, and that is acid rain that causes damage.
Yeah.
And a meteor shower.
Yeah, I can see that.
I want to see it. I want to see damage.
A sparse meteor shower, maybe. Yeah, I mean, acid rain, where everything is slowly changing by a little bit. It's a data nightmare.
It would be awesome, though.
Sure. Well, once everybody's on terabit Ethernet, terabit internet connections,
get some Google fiber up in here.
There you go.
Okay, so here's one about a issue in the game. Templates not turning red when they exit the claim anymore.
It's not turning red.
Yeah.
Oh.
Used to, when you had a template and if you crossed the boundary of your claim, it would turn the whole thing red and say, hey, you can't place this here. And now, even if you exit out of it, it still shows green. Is there a way to do like a transition on the border to where it does like this for green and then, of course, like this for red, or something like that, maybe?
Right. Are you wanting to get it to turn red if the entire thing is outside? Because I believe the modification that was made that probably most affected that was making it so that you can partially place a template where it would just clip at the edge of the claim boundary. So in which case it's still technically valid. It's just that you're clipping the whole thing. So I mean, maybe we could make it red if it's completely outside the claim, but I don't think we'd want to make it red if it was partially outside the claim. Making it half red and half green is
a good compromise.
Sure.
It's a good compromise.
I can think of now.
And that kind of leads us into the next one here, which it probably should have gone right before that one. Volumetrics and particle effects as usable by players.
Right.
I know y'all were talking about volumetrics where you could like select an area and you can maybe control it to where it has mist or maybe even control that volume to cause damage or something like that. How far along?
So the short answer is that we have that system coming out pretty soon.
Awesome.
But not for what you think it is.
It's still good.
We're building the foundation of it for some stuff that's coming out soon. What we're calling linking and triggering, which is the essentially more sophisticated scripting, so that you can.
We saw that in the list, but we didn't know what the heck it was. So that actually helps a lot. Thanks.
Right. So what that is we now have what you'll be seeing is the ability to you'll get a new tool, which is and this is all still being fleshed out, so this could all change. But that is specifically for adding selection volumes to the world that don't have anything to do with editing. They stay. You can drop essentially a selection volume, which becomes a trigger volume in the world, and then you can attach the on enter event. So if somebody walks into it, you can cause that to trigger something to happen. For example, walk into an area and have it open the door.
That's pretty awesome.
Right. So
it's actually really cool.
The nice thing about that is that once we have that system to edit those boxes, those trigger volumes, we can attach a lot of other things to them as well, and that's slated for further down the line, maybe. But something you could look for.
So it's basically the first integration of player-based scripting, sort of.
Yeah.
Ish.
Yeah, it's the first phase. Yeah, but the reason why I'm bringing that up in answer to your first question, though, is that once you have the ability to drop these volumes into the world that are just volumes that stand alone, just like a prop would, then you have the ability to attach other properties to them. And we don't have any of that tech built, but once you have the basic way for players to drop those in there, that's the first step. So yeah, we've always wanted to do stuff where you could make environmental effects, have it change gravity, or who knows what kinds of weird things you could do inside of a box, right?
See, you just took my head and put it up here, because I just started thinking about just putting down that volumetric to cause gravity, so when they walked across the empty claim, it would just shoot up in the sky. So,
or something like you guys have used things like the inverted voxels for making walls that you can walk through. That sort of
yeah.
Wouldn't it be a much nicer interface to be able to just drop a box there and say, don't put any collision here, so that people can walk through? Probably easier.
That works. Okay.
Not nearly as much voxel I'd see involved.
I know Miguel was working on the dynamic water. The last time we heard anything about it was at SOE Live. Right. Where do you think we are for being able to fill our lakes and the different other areas of the islands right now?
Right. So the story with dynamic liquids is that he finished a lot of the R&D work on that. So we have something that is ready to begin an integration with our stuff. Mm-hmm. We just have to, since we've been focusing on core gameplay, and that's not really part of the core gameplay, or at least there's definitely some, when you start thinking about the gameplay tie-ins that causes, what's to keep somebody from punching a hole in the wall and killing everybody who's in underground by drowning them.
I'd do that.
Yeah, I know you would. So there's a lot of gameplay issues that we still have to think about in terms of what does it really mean to enable partially or fully dynamic liquids in the game. I mean, that's aside from all of the performance implications that it has. Just like the example of the acid rain or the snow building up. I mean, you get things that open the possibility of large-scale voxel changes. There's definitely some fundamental issues that we need to solve first. But it's definitely still high on my list of priorities. I want to see it happen. So,
sweet. Well, that kind of ties us to the next one. The next question here is camera clipping versus plants, glass, and other type items that basically makes our camera do like this when we're walking around certain items. Has there been any progress on that?
I know we have some bugs logged about it. I guess if there's a specific prop or something that's causing a problem. I mean, against glass, are you saying, what's the question versus glass? I hadn't heard about that before. I've heard of problems with props, but I know you didn't ask the original question. But
I'm guessing, like if we have like a piece of glass prop up, if we're standing like this with the glass behind us, it brings the camera in to this side of the glass instead of being out here, so you can look down into the glass, down onto your character. That's
a pretty good suggestion. I mean, we do have the ability to know whether voxel data is transparent or not. And it's a decent suggestion. We could make it so that the camera doesn't collide with glass. I'll note that down.
Sweet.
The other ones are specific props that might just have some collision data that's off. In theory, you shouldn't be getting the camera forced through unless it actually collides with something, right? And a lot of times there might be like a lot of the trees were doing this for a long time, where they had very exaggerated collision volumes on them, so the camera would collide with them even though it appeared like it shouldn't. And those we can take care of on a case-by-case basis. But the glass suggestion is a good one.
Sweet. This takes us into the next one, which is Authenticator app for Android or iPhone.
Yeah, that's more of a SOE-wide question. That's probably be for our platform group.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
skip.
Yeah, sounds cool. I'm not gonna put work on their plate.
Okay. User interface customization, movable components such as the hotbar at the bottom. Because we had a person ask me about it. Hey, how can I move the hotbar off to the side so I can put my chat box in the center of the screen?
Okay, right. So once we get into that's probably more of a an issue for the EQNext UI because we do want to have as customizable of a UI as possible. It's pretty standard for it's standard for some MMOs. I guess a lot of the more recent MMOs have moved away from having customizable UIs. It is a little bit of a challenge because since we built the game based on the Planetside engine, it used Scaleform, which is a product that basically wraps Adobe Flash.
Yeah, kind of like a plug-in.
Right. So most of our UI is using that, which means that to make it truly, I mean, the whole topic of a moddable UI is one that's still quite often debated internally. So, but it's not something we've had to solve because we decided early on that we weren't going to have a moddable UI for Landmark. That was an next thing. But it's definitely something, one of those things in that last 40% of the game or whatever we'll have to address. Hopefully it doesn't turn into a giant monster. But yeah, there's a lot of tricky issues there. But eventually we will have that. But probably not real soon for Landmark. But definitely.
Okay. Next one is single material switching within a selected volume.
Okay. Want to take a guess as to what that actually means?
Okay, so if I select a corner of my house, and inside that corner of my house we have, say, 6 different materials. If there's a way to actually change one single material without affecting the other materials within that selected volume. So
you're talking about a find and replace type
yes.
thing for materials?
Yes.
Yeah, we've talked about that. There's a very long list of editing enhancements we could add to the game, and eventually will add to the game. So it's just a matter of is that something that's low-hanging fruit? It might be. I know we have it on our list already, but I'll add it just to make sure. So find and replace material.
Awesome. So it is on the to-do list, guys. Okay. All right. Let's see. Next one would be regular paint colors such as red, blue, and yellow. And I believe that would be outside of using, well, actually it would still take a, it would still take a texture one way or another to do that. So I don't know if that's in your realm or not.
What's the question?
There's a lot of people that's looking because they want regular paint colors. So
they want to be able to mix colors and have whatever colors they want.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
Yes.
Very difficult problem due to the way the texturing works. Don't want to go too far over everybody's heads, but I mean, we use a texture atlasing system, and we have a fixed number of materials we can support. So every single different color or tint is going to burn one of those. So right now, for our terrain, that is difficult. It's something we could potentially do for props, things like that, but that's not what you're asking about, I'm sure.
Well, I think it's
one of the early limitations that we would have pretty early on.
I think basically what they're asking for is, basically like a color picker where it has like the basic colors, blue, red, orange, green, et cetera, without getting too crazy with the amount of textures, but have them just say.
As soon as you make the color independent of the actual texture,
yes.
the number of permutations of color and texture explodes exponentially.
Yeah.
And since we have a finite number of texture / color slots that we can use, it's not something that's really feasible with the way that this engine works. You can't really freely paint colors, no matter wherever you want them in this engine.
Okay, so assuming that is pretty much the law. Does that mean that we could possibly have just a painted texture that is one single color, and then have another, and there would be individual ones that would just be another texture, just like we have currently?
I mean, yeah, but what is the texture behind the color then? Is it just a flat texture? That's pretty boring. Most of the time, you're not going to want pastel, Lego style.
I think what they're looking for is just a flat color that is not lumicite.
Sure.
And that way they could have it, and they could, you know, paint a
Yeah,
red barn red if they wanted it
as
to.
long as as long as we're not saying arbitrary color on top of on top of arbitrary texture,
Hmm.
so you avoid the massive combinatorial explosion that occurs there. That's probably a good subject to bring up on in one of the workshop shows or something with Rosie and Jeff, because Rosie's the one that decides what textures get put out.
Maybe I can drag her up here next time.
Maybe.
All right, so moving on. The next question is there any Easter eggs currently in the game?
Hmm. Easter eggs. Hmm. I wouldn't say if there were. So.
I think that is a yes or no question. Okay, just carry on.
What would be the fun in me telling you that? Telling you
I,
that?
I don't know. I don't know. Maybe there's. Yes, the answer is yes.
So
Go
the
look
answer
for it. Okay.
Prove I'm lying. The answer is yes.
Exactly. Okay, so the next one is I'm not sure what this pertains to, but it seemed like it was within your realm, so I left it in here. Air voxels.
Mm-hmm.
Will we
Is
be
that
getting air
is
voxels?
that a question? What is it? What depends on what you mean by an air voxel.
Exactly. I'm not sure. It was in the yeah.
I mean, there's this miraculous thing that doesn't really exist. Especially I mean, you of all people probably understand
Yeah.
the most about how the box system works. But I mean, uh, the ability to just replace voxels with air and expect it to come out looking like
I think
you
it's
expect it to is a difficult one because the places where the internal vectors point in all the voxels is not determined with the future of maybe somebody's going to place air voxels here in mind, right?
yeah.
It's to optimize the surface,
I
and
think
that doesn't work if you just replace things with air.
I think what this pertains to is like Corinne just said, air as a material so that we could build underwater.
Yeah, that is a little bit more possible, and we could probably do it with user placed water. The problem comes in is trying to make it universal, which is what we'd have to do, obviously,
Hmm.
because the ocean is treated differently. The big problem with air pockets underwater, especially under the ocean right now, is that if you have a transition between air and water, you're going to generate that nice undulating wavy water mesh, which if you stick a solid wall, steel or wood or whatever there, the water is going to wave in and out over the top of
Like
the
this.
exactly over the top of that wall, and making the code to prevent it from doing that is possible, but the generation of that stuff way down because it has to do checks on a per voxel level for everything to see is my neighbor a solid block. Turn on, somehow tell the shader on the graphics card to not wave this part of the mesh, and then you have to start tagging all of the vertexes in the mesh to say don't animate me. Is it possible? Yes. It's just not something we've jumped on yet, and that's why we haven't done that. But
Awesome.
definitely see the use for that.
Awesome.
Just have to solve some problems to get there.
Well, we are coming close to our 1 hour mark that I told you that we'd have.
Yep.
So I'm gonna end this off with a very good question.
Okay.
And if you could put anything into either Landmark or EverQuest Next, what would it be?
Millions and millions of players.
Not the default answer.
Sorry.
Not the default
You're
answer.
talking about a technical feature, I imagine.
Yeah.
Gosh. If I said what that was, that would be making a lot of work for myself, probably. I have plenty of that. Do you want to refine the scope of the question to be something which I don't think is actually possible, or is it
Sure.
anything? that I could have. Gosh. I mean, we got plans for just about everything that we've thought of. So,
I mean, the list is building in chat right now. We've got people saying a little bit of everything here. Elke has said raid zones. Cody said dragons. You know, a dragon named Klug is the other one that has been said.
Full virtual reality with tactile feedback, right? So that I can. There you go.
Yes, good answer.
We can wear the bodysuit and actually, throw my grappling hook literally at the wall, and not destroy my wall.
Awesome. I will accept that.
All right, cool.
All right, so that pretty much wraps up our show today. We got like 2 minutes left, so this is kind of our close-up time here. Like I said, I really do appreciate you coming on the show. It's been a blast, and hopefully the questions didn't get too hairy for you there.
No.
But
if you want to see more of me on the other live streams, just
yeah,
let them know. They'll drag me on, I'm sure.
Awesome. I will. I'll wait until Dave kind of logs in on his account, and then I'll just start spamming him. Just spam the poop out of him.
I'm sure he appreciates that.
But like I said, it's very much appreciated for you to come on the show. It's been a blast, and hopefully some of the questions that people have had out there has been answered today. And if your question that you sent in did not get answered, it's because it didn't relate to his job. So
I don't think I sidestepped too many of them, so that was good.
And but with that, I'm going to end the show. And again, thank you very much, Steve. Love to have you back on at some point in time, and definitely keep up the good work. We all really appreciate it.
Let's talk again post holidays, and we can see how you guys like the stuff we released this month. So,
all right, it's a deal. And cool. With that, have a good one, everybody, and thank you for coming to the show.
Take care.